You're listening to Freestyle Flashback with handsome Rich Ransom.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Freestyle Flashback. Handsome Rich Ransom here with legendary DJ Vicious V. Thank you, my friend, for joining.
Thank you so much, Rich, for the opportunity to talk about freestyle music and all that good stuff. I'm excited.
Yeah, I wanna dive into this. I mean, you're a legend in the Bay Area. You're a hero to many. You've been copied. You've been bootlegged. You've been, many things over the years. But for those that don't know you or aren't familiar with your work, how long have you been doing this, and how did you get started spinning records in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, the exact year, I don't know. And thank you so much for the compliments there. I don't know if I'm all that, but I definitely love DJing. I definitely have a passion for it, the music, battling, just the whole culture, so it's been probably about, I would say about 30 years since I've been DJing, and I still love it, So I got started basically my 14th birthday. My dad would always ask me, "What do you want for your birthday?" For my 14th birthday, my dad, I told my dad I want to be a DJ. I want to start, I need some turntables and a mixer.
Yep.
So I remember because it was $200 and it was two SLBD turntables, the Techniques.
Yep.
Not the 1200s, obviously, but the SLBDs with the little pitch control, this big, belt drive, and a Newmark mixer. So that's how I got started. I just fell in love with it, started buying records. My first record was Move Something by Two Live Crew.
Nice.
So
okay, what did your parents feel about that? It's not.
They thought I was crazy because one thing that happened was not only was I playing explicit music, like in the garage, basically, but my dad he was a electrical engineer, and he had his workshop in there too, in the garage. After some time, the records started taking over, and there was no room for anything else. There's just records everywhere, and it just imagine this garage where just crates everywhere, and so that's how I kind of blossomed into a career. I started doing. I remember my first gig ever was excuse me. My friend Levi's 8th grade graduation in his garage. He asked me, "Hey, you think you can DJ my party?" And I was like, "What? What do you mean DJ your party?" "Yeah, just DJ my party." And I was like, "Okay, well, sure, why not?" You know what I mean? I had no idea. I mean, I kind of knew what I was doing, but you're new, you're nervous, and you're just gonna make some records. But I just fell in love with it. It was so much fun, just playing music for people. You feel their vibe. I kind of like catch their energy, and you flow with them, and all that good stuff. So, and I know you DJed a lot, so you understand that vibe that you get. So yeah, man, that's how I started. Like I said, I'm so thankful for him for he really kind of opened up the doors, for me to kind of jump in and get started. And so that's how I started. I was 14 years old. So
sweet, yeah. Well, it's funny because you mentioned the Two Live Crew, and I remember when the double album with Me So Horny came out, I was working at KMEL, and we were actually playing the clean version.
Yeah.
And I came across an old air check with Rick Chase, and he was giving out the Me So Horny fun pack or something like that. It was the album or the CD. It was a painter's hat that I think I still have it somewhere. There was the Me So Horny T-shirt and the Me So Horny pack of condoms.
Oh wow, yeah. I'm trying to think. I have it. Oh, you know what? Okay, I remember which one it was. I'm not gonna cuss on here, obviously, but the vinyl, I have it here actually, because this is my home office and I got my setup right here.
Sure.
And I have it somewhere in my stack of records, but it's We Want Some P. And when you put the record in, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. When you put the record on the spindle becomes because of the graphic, it becomes transforms into something else. I have to. I'm sure you can imagine.
The genius of Luke.
Yeah, it was pretty clever, actually. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's pretty cool. So you're born and raised in the South Bay, right?
I was born in Argentina, actually.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, and then I was basically, yeah. So that's where I got my start. That's where I grew up in San Jose, though. You know, after coming from Argentina, and that's kind of like what influenced me. You know, just living in San Jose, the east side of San Jose, and I still have some friends that live over there, and it's really cool that I started there because that's where I got a lot of my musical influences and you know, all that good stuff. So yeah.
So what about the South Bay or growing up in the Bay Area as a whole? How did that influence your musical taste?
Well, it's something that you're very well aware of. I mean, listening to KMEL, right? And that was like, to me, listening to Cameron Paul, Michael Erickson, and Theo and those guys. That's what kind of got me like kind of started, you know, because listening to them, I was like, man, especially Cameron Paul. To me, he's just total legend. Just me listening to it, that was the influence, and me asking myself, how can I do what he's doing? You know, how do I make that sound? How does that sound so good? Like, how is he actually doing it? Like, what's he actually doing? You know?
Yeah.
And that's what kind of got me intrigued, and you know, I started looking into it. But one thing that was really hard at that time is that there was nobody really teaching it. You kind of had to figure it out for yourself. It's almost like some kind of ninja art or something. Like, you know, there wasn't no online where you could just go online and, you know, look up tutorial, how to mix two records, how to beat match, all that stuff is all available. But anyway, just a lot of trial and error, and you just, you know, you work hard at it and you figure it out. You go somewhere, you see somebody DJing and you're watching them, you're watching what they're doing, they're writing the pitch control. You know, sometimes they're using the up and down faders instead of the actual fader, you know, things like that, little details, you know, and you pick up on it.
You do remember Cameron had that VHS tape. I think it was called Cameron Paul Tells All. And I think you can find it on YouTube.
I watched it.
There.
What's funny is
$29.95.
Yeah,
I killing.
I loved it, but I didn't watch it till I already knew what, you know, this was like, I don't know, a lot later than when it came out. You know what I mean? For some reason, I didn't know about it. So I was like, man, I wish I would have had this when I started. But anyway, I didn't know about it until much later, you know. So
how did you go from that 14-year-old kid at a garage house party to being a part of the legendary wild style DJs with, I mean, again, legends, right? Jazzy Jim Archer, Jose Melendez, Double Barrel Daryl. I mean, legends, right? I mean, how do you go from that kid to being part of, I was at KMEL, so I'm gonna throw a little bit of shade, but going, from that 14-year-old kid to being the second best crew of DJs in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I don't know about all that, but no, man, I'm kidding. But yeah, that's kind of a long story. So let's see. Well, basically, one thing a lot of people don't know, even though I was, would take whatever gig I can get when I started, right, including my friends, eighth grade graduation, whatever. You take any gig you can because you're just starting and you're trying to get your feet wet and you're trying to like learn and just, you'll do any gig that is offered to you. I did a lot of quinceañeras. I did a lot of, weddings, the mobile DJ stuff, house parties. That's another thing. That was crazy. Just doing house parties, people are just drinking everywhere in the garage. You just you do your setup, you put up your lights and you just, all kinds of crazy, house parties. But in between time, when you're not doing the gigs, I would just I started getting into scratching. I would listen to Magic Mike. I would listen to Joe Cooley. And again, kind of sparked my interest. How are they doing that? And you kind of, like anything else, at first you try to emulate it.
Yeah.
And then when you get it, you're like, wait, I'm gonna make it my own. I'm gonna do things differently. I'm gonna, maybe I'm gonna scratch this way or that way. But you take inspiration from those guys. You know what I mean? And to me, they're legends because, like I said, I grew up listening to them. And if they ever watch this, man, I got so much love and props for both of those guys. But yeah, that's what inspired me. So I practiced a lot. Like I said, I spent hours and hours, excuse me, in the garage. And I really like scratching and turntablism because it's kind of part of hip hop culture. So originally I started to kind of like as a battle DJ, even though I would do whatever gigs came my way. I started doing these little battles. So to answer your question, there was one particular battle. I posted it on my Facebook, and I don't know if you saw it, but there's a picture.
I did, yeah.
And so that was kind of a turning point because I won the battle, right? And I'm like, maybe I'm a little too philosophical, but, like there's a little bit of glory. Oh, good job, this and that, whatever, right? You're hanging with your friends, and that's cool, right? And it lasts for a minute. But then I was like, man, I got a gig next week, and I got to drop $200 on records that I don't even have. So this is not going to pay my bills, right? Like I want to make sure I do a good job on my gig. I need, records. So then I started thinking, okay, well, what do I need to do? And I thought to myself, I don't know, kind of had like a turning point. I was like, you know what? I need to get on the radio, right? And I had that thought in my mind. I don't know how, just like it happens with a lot of things. And I'm sure it's happened to you where you're like, I don't know how, but I need to go from point A to point B, and I got to find a way. So I'm out there, just DJing here and there, whatever. And so two things happen. One of them is that battle. All the winners from these smaller battles at that equipment store, which is called Dynamic Sounds in San Jose.
Okay.
They had a few battles. I don't know how many. Actually, I'll tell you right now because I got the thing here. Let me see. So they had 1, 2, 3, 6 battles. I got the flyer for the big battle here. So for this battle, I'm pretty sure that Jazzy Jim was one of the judges and Qbert was one of the judges.
Okay, legends.
So
that's
I'm pretty sure that's when I first met Jazzy Jim.
Yeah, it's a pretty good panel of judge right there.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't meet him like too officially, but I think he knew who I was because I was in a battle. Mm-hmm. And then so that was that. And then later on, I have a friend. He's still around. He does a lot of house music. I always give him props whenever I can, and I'm forever thankful to him. And if he watches this, man, I'm forever thankful to you. His name is Arturo Garces, and he's like a big house DJ.
Okay.
And so him and I started doing like these raves, right? Which is crazy. These underground parties. I'm talking like, like you don't even know where they're being held, and you give somebody the location on a flyer, they have to drive there and all kinds of crazy stuff, right? Playing a lot of like techno and house music and stuff. So me and him would DJ together at different places. We became good friends. And I don't remember if he worked at Upstairs Records or he knew, I think he knew them. He was real cool with them because he lived, practically down the street. So he'd go there to buy records. So I happened to go over there with them. And he introduced me to Jazzy again, because I had met him at the battle, but it wasn't too official, the whole meeting thing.
Right.
So he's like, hey, it's my boy V, whatever, he's a good DJ, this and that. And somehow or another, I think either Jazzy told me or he told me to make a demo for Jazzy. Mm-hmm. So I went home on my 4-track, made a mix. And, obviously I was really nervous and all this stuff, because this is like my shot, hopefully he hears it. And he was at Hot 97 at the time, Hot 97.7, the radio station in San Jose.
Oh, yeah.
So along with, obviously, the Doghouse got their start there. Hopefully I don't miss any names. The homies, DJ Greg Lopez, Razor Rob, Rich Laxamana. I'm trying to think who else. DJ Please. Strawberry was on the air. Mm-hmm. Any DJs that I missed? Let's see. Hopefully not. So anyway, he was running the mix show at the time. Jazzy was. So I made the 4-track, brought it back. He said, "Can you make one every week?" I was like, hell yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I'm stoked, right? Because I remember I told you, but before that I had wanted to get on the radio to get more gigs and to basically expand, right? To be able to DJ at places and stuff like that, get the name out. So yeah, so I don't know if that pretty much covers it, but from then it just went crazy because obviously that station was defunct and went off the air, but everybody ended up kind of migrating to Wild 107. And then, obviously from Wild 107.7, that turned into Wild 94.9.
Right.
And the rest is history, but that's kind of how I got my start and all that stuff happened. And I want to make sure that I say it over and over because I'm forever thankful for all those guys. Arturo for making the introduction, and of course to Jazzy Jim for giving me the opportunity, man. The guy's a legend, and I know we're going to get to it, but he's definitely on the Mount Rushmore. The guy's inspirational. He's a good leader, great leader. You know what I mean? And also just really, really good at picking talent. And he brought all these guys up. You know what I mean? Like totally inspiring. I mean, you should see it. Back in the day when we had even mixer meetings, we'd have mixer meetings, and he would spearhead the meetings to the point where we all wanted to go home and practice. You know what I mean? And it's very difficult to do, to inspire people. I think it's really hard.
It is.
So I mean, major props to him.
Yeah, I mean, a great leader is hard to find in anything, right? I mean, whether it's the military, business, I mean, whatever, school. I mean, that's awesome. And I mean, you touched on the scratchers. I mean, I could never, I mean, what was that song, Itching for a Scratch? I mean,
Itching for a Scratch.
I mean, for me, that was about I can't do this. I tried, and I think I got, and I don't know if I was any good at it, but I just got, I was inspired and then discouraged at the same time. And I think I told you the story before. I think it was 87. We were in Fresno at the time, and the World Class Wrecking Crew came and did a show for us, right? This was when Turn Off the Lights was just breaking in like the small markets, right? It was like it didn't hit the Bay Area yet. I mean, it was like on 10 stations across the country. And so we got Lonzo there. Oh God, who else was there? Richie Rich, L.A. Dre. I don't know if the Dr. Dre was there at the time. I don't remember. This was before we didn't carry cameras. Michelet, if I didn't already say it. And then he brought along as a DJ, it was DJ Battlecat and Dr. Ice from UTFO. So, I mean, when you look at the talent on that little stage in that crappy little nightclub I think it was called the First Street Nightclub. And I don't want to say it was crappy because we did a lot of stuff there. It was just, it wasn't an arena. It wasn't a club like Club Mirage or any of the clubs that we were used to when we hit a major market. It was just a tiny little bar that had a 15-foot wide stage. And, I just remember standing there watching Battlecat do his thing on that, like what you said, a couple of techniques and a Newmark, and no software, no laptop, just him. I mean, it was 30 years later, however long God, I mean, more than that. I'm just blown away by how amazing that was. But you mentioned earlier, Cameron Paul, right? I mean, I think Cameron Paul was maybe not the best DJ, right? I'm sure we could find and we could argue all day long about who was better or was he the best or whatever. But I would have to say, and I think you would agree with me, that he was probably the most influential DJ, at least to our generation and the generation that followed me, followed you, and probably that next generation. In the clubs, on the radio. How did Cameron inspire you?
Well, basically I mean, it's still inspiring. I still listen to his mixes, and I'm like, man, because part of it is like mechanically, right? Like even with technology now, you can literally stack a bunch of records together and play them at the same time. but we both know they're not going to sound good. So you have to have an ear for it. And that's the thing that I still find, real like little nuance and stuff to the mixes when I'm listening. I'm like, man, he chose the songs very well. I mean, nowadays they'll tell you what key it's in. You know what I mean? You could literally match keys if you had to. Like back then, things just had to sound good. There was an art to not just matching the pitch, but making sure that things flowed, had a certain flow to it. It just sounded good together. There's certain records that I'm sure you mix where you're like, man, these two records are it's like magic, right? Well, there's something to that. There's science behind it, but he did that repeatedly. And when you listen to his mixes or a lot of like the wordplay, that's very difficult. Like I said, nowadays you can literally like go on your laptop and songs that have the word, whatever, right? Ex-girlfriend or whatever, right? And they'll pop up on your laptop. But at that time, we didn't have any of that. You know what I mean? I just saw a video today. I don't know how it popped up. I was on TikTok, and it was Carlos Berrios, famous freestyle producer, and he was showing, how editing, you would take the tape block and you literally cut the tape, right? Anyway, not to get all crazy about it, but things were a lot harder back then. And so for me, you asked me the question about him and how he inspired me. Just that time that it took to do those mixes, where you have to do things over and over and over, the repetition, the consistency, the perseverance that you have to have is crazy, right? And we both know, because we grew up in that era also, that things take a lot longer. So you build a lot of patience, but you have to have perseverance. You have to have a goal. You have to have a vision, right? How you're going to do things and why are you going to do them. And like I said, that's why it was inspiring to me, that I still listen to that stuff and I'm like, man, that was dope. How you put these two together, how you only played this one for like 4 bars and he switched out of it. Those things are very time consuming, But anyway, that's how I got my inspiration. Even now when I do my mixes, I take a lot of inspiration from him. Like he would do like the wordplay stuff or, certain things that he would bring in just for a little bit. One of the things that he did a lot that I noticed, at least for me, that I really like, it has a lot of depth when you have 2 records writing together, even though you don't have to do any wordplay. So it just has like a depth to it when you have 2 beats writing with each other on top of each other. When you listen back to it, it doesn't sound like just playing one song. I mean, again, there's a little like details and stuff, but as a DJ, you notice all the little things, you know what I mean? So that's what inspired me. Even 2 records together that are matched, they just sound good together. Like I said, that's what sparked it for me. I was like, man, how the hell is he doing that? And then not to get all, Debbie Downer or anything, but I remember one time I was a little bit disillusioned because then I heard him live, right? And I didn't know. Again, I was a naive kid, right? Then I heard him live and I was like, wait a minute. I didn't know those are pre-mixed, right? Because he mixed the records together. You know what I mean? Like he mixed his mixes together. And I didn't know that they were pre-mixed, right? So, but then I figured, okay, well, dude, he's live. He's at a nightclub. So he's got to do whatever he's got to do to rock the party. It wasn't until later till I realized that, like, I mean, that's going to take away from all the greatness. He's got to be on point with what he's doing right now in front of those people. So,
I don't know if he was the first to do it, but I know that he was the first to do it at City Nights, where he needed a 3rd turntable in the DJ booth. So he was running 3 at a time. But what you mentioned a moment ago, I was just listening to one of his mixes earlier today on YouTube, and you were talking about the songs. He was going from Doug Lazy to Technotronic back and forth. And in a million years, I wouldn't put those 2 songs together in my own head, but it worked. It absolutely, positively worked. Right.
That's what I mean. Things like that. That's what's inspiring, Rich, because when somebody does something that you're thinking in your mind, like, oh, I could have done that. And technically we could have done it, right? But you and I wouldn't have heard what he heard, and he made it happen. You know what I mean? So you have to give props to, in my mind, you have to give props to the person that actually did almost the unthinkable, something very creative, where it took something to the next level. And that's what, like I said, I could go on all day, but the guy inspired me. What more can I say? Like, I got major props for the guy, and of course, R.I.P. I mean, he inspired so many DJs in the Bay Area. You know what I mean? And probably worldwide. So
yeah.
I honestly think that if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't, Vicious V wouldn't exist, you know, because
I think you could say that probably about 75% of the DJs on the West Coast.
So, well, that's, I'm glad, man, because like I said, I was so inspired. I'm still inspired by it. You know, if I'm going to do a mix, you know, like a mega mix or something, or a quick mix, and I'll listen to some of his stuff and just get inspired by it, even to this day. You know, I listen to it on YouTube. So
for sure.
Yeah.
So this is it's supposed to be a podcast about freestyle music, and we really haven't touched that much on freestyle. I mean, it's a huge part of you know, of the formative years of when, you know, I got into radio, you know, in the 80s and into the 90s. And, you know, it was a huge part of, you know, the Bay Area. I mean, clearly it's a regional niche, you know, type of music, right? I mean, it's, you know, Minneapolis had their music, Seattle had their music. Freestyle was, you know, I mean, it had crossover hits, obviously, with Expose and the Cover Girls and some others. That for them, it was just top 40. But, you know, I look at, you know, freestyle starting, you know, in the early mid 80s. And, you know, to me, it just kind of came out of nowhere. But the beauty of it is today it still connects with an audience. And, you know, I'm hearing it more. I mean, Studio 54 on Sirius XM is working in freestyle music. The shows are popping up all over the country now of the, you know, the revival shows. And it's just so refreshing to see the artists that in many, if not most cases, got completely hosed by somebody back in the
Yeah.
day. And they're finally making money, you know, a few decades later, performing the songs that everybody loved.
Yeah. It's to me, it's kind of a testament to the music and how good it is, because it can withstand the test of time. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to sound like an a-hole, but I'm pretty sure a lot of the songs now, their expiration date is like next week. So, I mean, you know right away. And it's true because they come out with, of course, the technology is different, but that's the crux of it, Rich. I think that, like anything else in life, when you work really hard at something and you make it your craft, including DJing, including whatever craft, you know, you're doing, when you spend so much time practicing and drilling and back and forth and countless hours, you tend to make more quality stuff, right? From the writing to the production, because it's a whole process. It's not a guy that just sells you a beat and then you rap over it and you put some freaking effects on it and all of a sudden it's a hit. I mean, I'm sure you know, but there's AI is also taking over in terms of like making like fake music. Like there's no human singing. Like all that. Anyway, my point is that if a song can be made by AI, right, and it could be in the top 100,
yeah,
I mean, it tells you that ought to tell you why songs were actually authentically made with countless hours of production. You know, from the vocals to everything else that was going on, the engineering, the mastering, the whole thing, right? Not to mention the vocals. Cutting the vocals was, you know, I'm sure that usually takes a long time, you know, because you're like doing ad libs and you're doing this and you're doing that. Sometimes people's voices go out, they come back the next day or however many days later. It's a whole process, right? But that's part of the reason why I think it's still as good as it is because it was made the right way with a lot of, you know, heart and intent and professionalism, you know? So
I mean, a lot of these early records were done on 4 tracks. You know, I mean, I was working in Fresno when Timmy T did Time After Time in his garage.
Yeah, that,
you know,
I can't even, man. It's unbelievable. I'm sorry. That record. I know it wasn't a 4-track, but what kind of 4-track was it? Because that record is so dope. I mean, give me that 4-track. I want to see it. I want to see the 4-track. Because what you're telling me is that's what I mean. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like that song is just, it still bumps so hard to this day. I still play it. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
yeah, major props.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let me ask you now, if you go on Wikipedia and you look up freestyle or the first freestyle song, it's going to come up with either Shannon or Niobe, right?
Yeah.
And okay, so there's a debate, right? Okay, which one was released first, which one was made first? But then, Alvin brought up, I talked to DJ 99 a while back, and, he brought it up, and I think you've brought it up too. What about Freeze's, IOU? And then, I mentioned, what about, C-Bank and One More Shot? That to me sure as hell sounds like freestyle, and that was 1982 on Next Plateau Records. So, it's post-disco, and then that big question is well, how does it qualify or disqualify to be freestyle? And I don't know the answer. I mean, it's a big debate. I'm not going to get into an argument, but I'm just curious.
No, it's not.
Other
Definitely.
people's opinion.
Yeah. I think just my humble opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of roots in the East Coast, right? But I think kind of what you mentioned, it has to do with the percussion, right? You can get into the nuance of the vocals and hearts broken and this and that, which is a typical thing. But you can do that for country music. I mean, it's all about love and breakups and hearts broken and all that kind of stuff, which is great. Yeah. I don't mind it. I love it. But my point is that for freestyle, to me, it's defined by the percussion and basically the beats, right? And how they're made. It's almost like it has this Miami bass feel to it. And also some of it has kind of like a Latin feel to it. And that combined kind of makes sense, because there's Latin roots in a lot of music. So I think that's what kind of classifies it as freestyle. And then of course you get the kind of like the more niche, like, I mean, I know I mentioned it earlier, but Upstairs Records, right?
Yep.
Really, literally, they started a label, right? And they had a lot of homegrown freestyle from San Jose. 21 East, Days, Galley, of course, then a lot of the same people behind the scenes, Angelina, which is kind of freestyle, sort of dance freestyle. So
she was Gen 2.
Yeah, exactly. But but keep in mind that the people behind the scenes was Upstairs Records that put her out. So they had a history with, and they had a record store. So they had a lot of connections. They had put out Days, which is, freestyle, Galley, what's it called? Spanish Fly, right? Can't forget Spanish Fly. So, and of course, I'm talking about where I'm from. I'm sure there were similar things happening on the East Coast and regionally, maybe in Texas and different places where different artists started, creating their own productions. But, I can't speak on that, but I'm sure it was going on. And it was all influenced by the freestyle, which we called, at that time, we didn't call it freestyle, we called it high energy. Can you play high energy? Sure. And it was, what we call it freestyle now. I don't know how that came about, whatever. For me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
People call it freestyle, I'll call it whatever. I know what it is when I hear it,
So let me ask you, I mean, there's, the way I look at it is things oftentimes happen in a parallel universe, right? Two people, unbeknownst of each other, are doing essentially the exact same thing at the exact same time, creating a trend or a product or something. And it literally happened pretty much at the same time in New York and Miami. Now, are you a Miami guy or a New York guy, or because we're both from California, it really doesn't matter? They're both all good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence on that one. I don't know. It's hard for me to pick. I can't really pick. I like both. I do have to say maybe. Remember I mentioned that I was really into scratching and things like that, right?
Yeah.
I always have been. I still am. I don't know why. It's like therapy to me. Like I have my little setup and I'll be doing my work here in my office. And then sometimes when I'm just like, okay, I had it. I'm doing something that's just way, way boring for 2 hours. I'm going to take a break and go scratch for 10 minutes or whatever. But anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because obviously, as you know, Miami bass had a lot of scratching. There's a lot of like scratching, and like Mami El Negro. You had the Cut It Up Def records. I don't know if you ever seen those, which had DJs like Jealous J, some of those guys. Of course, Magic Mike. He's around. He does podcast. I mean, he does live streaming and stuff. I see him. I never met him, but he influenced me too. So I do like that side of it, the Miami bass feel. But obviously, I mean, New York is probably the mecca of freestyle. I'm pretty sure that's where it started. You know, I mean, that's my guess. I don't know. I'm not a historian by any means. I just love music. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and to me, it's kind of like, I'm not going to debate about where it started. It's like, I love it regardless. You know, even if it started in Alaska. Like, to me, it's just whatever. Like, it's not a point of debate for me. I just love the music, and honestly, I don't like to speculate on things I don't know anything about.
You're listening to Freestyle Flashback with handsome Rich Ransom. Freestyle Flashback. Freestyle Flashback.